Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Squawka Talker podcast. And as ever, we are here every week taking a deep dive into the tactics and the stories of both Premier League football and the game right the way across Europe. And in this episode, we are all about the wide boys. Wingers, wide midfielders, wing backs, wing forwards, full backs, whatever you want to call them, however you like your wide players, we, on today's podcast, we'll be getting stuck right into it. And the focus for today's pod, as we are all super excited for the return of Champions League football, is to answer the question, who has the best wide men in this season's Champions League? The competition itself, as we all know, has kicked off with a bang this week, and wing wizards and whizzing fullbacks are likely to be front row and centre in the months to come. Right then, let's get ourselves started. As ever, my name's Feargal Brennan, and joining me, we have two guys who I'm pretty confident find themselves on the left wing of every conversation and every situation. We have Squawka's own Mohamed. But, Mo, how's things?
I'm good, first of all, thank you. How are you? Hope you're well. Ironically, though, I tend to prefer right wingers a bit more on the pitch. You know, historically, I've always thought, I love right wingers. Love players that play on the right, dribble on the right, use their wing wizardry on there. Grealish, Beckham, all them kind of guys. Which is ironic, really. Messi too. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to stick by my original statement of finding themselves on the left wing because we also have football broadcaster and podcaster Mo Stewart. Mo, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very much left. I'm all the way left. Like I'm left-footed. I throw with my left hand. I mean, I'm a child of Barnes, so we are all very much left-sided. So yeah, I'm hugging that touchline and looking across the pitch from my right side.
God bless John Barnes. What a footballer.
Yes, indeed.
God bless indeed. Right. I'm going to spend most of the podcast trying to cut that little clip where Mo says that he prefers right wingers, and I'm going to see if I can get that out on Twitter. But back to the football, back to wingers on the pitch and in the Champions League. Before we get into some of the big names in terms of wing partnerships, fullbacks, wingers, wide forwards, that kind of thing, I want to talk about the role and how it's actually changed. Mo, I'll go to you first on this because you've put together a fantastic piece for Squawka. If you want to check it out, squawka.com is where Mo does all of his best work. But when we look at players and we look at assists and creating chances, generally we still look through the middle. We look for central midfielders, we look for a number 10 linking up with a striker, looking for little passes in behind to create chances and kind of orchestrating from a central position. And obviously the focus of today's podcast and a massive change in Premier League and European football over the last few seasons has been this rebirth of fullbacks playing really high up, getting involved, creating chances, scoring goals, and looking to make partnerships with the attackers in front of them. How important has that change been, not just in the Premier League, but right the way across European football?
I mean, it's been massive. It's been huge. I mean, the number 10, as we know it, as we knew it growing up in the 90s and the early noughties, is dead, right? It doesn't exist anymore, despite the fact that more teams are playing 4-2-3-1, which ostensibly actually was invented by Juan Malillo to have 3 number 10s on the pitch. That was the whole point of it. It was like, I don't want wingers, I just want 3 number 10s. And then it became this sort of weird, especially in England and under Jose Mourinho, it became this thing where you had 2 wingers, number 10, very specialised. Mesut Ozil and James Rodriguez were fantastic proponents of it. But the number 10 is gone now, essentially, as a creative fulcrum. Like you said, we all look to central playmakers, but with the exception of maybe Lionel Messi, who is a number 10? And Messi doesn't even play on the players of number 10, by the way, but who is a central playmaker these days? All the best playmakers now have more gone to the wide positions. Centrally, you have players who can be creative players, definitely creative midfielders in the world, but most of the best teams had their midfielders as their number 6s, their number 8s. So you're Joshua Kimmich, Frankie de Jong, Pedri, great example, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric. None of these guys are like what you would call a number 10. Possibly the only, Man United have a number 10. Their best player is a number 10. But he's not you would never call Bruno Fernandes a creator. He's just a pure foot on the accelerator every time. He's an accelerant. And his best attribute is getting forward and scoring goals, honestly. Perhaps the only one you would call a number 10 left in the world is Kevin De Bruyne. But even he's not really a number 10 because he plays best either deep or as a winger. So there is, the number 10 is gone and it's become this wing. The idea of the flanks being where you do your most of your creativity from is it's partly because I think it's the least dangerous area to give the ball away in, which is the main thing. So, because let's say you give the ball away wide, it's easier for you to then shut your opponent down because you can squeeze them against the touchline. Makes counter pressing easier. It's a very German influence, right? A lot of players, a lot of the best players played in Germany. A lot of great wide players played in Germany, or coaches. A lot of the best coaches right now were German coaches. Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel. So the idea, Bayern did a treble. I think the last 3 winners of the Champions League have all been German coaches. Am I right? Klopp,
Yes.
Flick, and then Tuchel. So it's a weird sort of Bundesliga era where it's not really the Bundesliga dominance, but there's a German influence definitely over modern football with the pressing, counter pressing, and the wide areas being such an important part of play. And you look at Chelsea, no creativity in midfield. Liverpool, no creativity or very little creativity in midfield, to the point where Thiago is like, what am I doing here? Like struggling to really figure out what he's doing at the club. And then Bayern had a little bit with Kimmich, but again, most of their stuff was coming out wide, as we'll discuss later on. So football has decentralized, as it were. The creativity is decentralized. It's now on the wings, right and left, a bit like society. You know what? More on that later.
Come for the politics, stay for the football chat. Mo, I want to throw this over to you. In terms of the Premier League, Mo has touched on it there with the major teams, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City. They're all comfortable. In fact, they're positive about playing without what would be defined as a number 10, a person that plays centrally, in behind a striker, advanced of his midfield colleagues. And you look at Liverpool, we're going to talk about in detail later, with Robertson and Mane on one side and Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mo Salah on the other. Chelsea play a similar system. City with Cancelo, Walker, Grealish, Mahrez, Foden, etc. It's been a real sea change in terms of tactical approaches, and the Premier League traditionally are a little bit behind the curve. Bundesliga, La Liga tend to kind of be more adaptable, more forward-thinking in this sense, but this is catching on in the Premier League. Jose Mourinho, as Mo touched on there, and his dominant Chelsea teams were very structured in the way that they had 2 deep-lying midfielders, a front 3, and then a main striker. Given the fact that this seems to be the way things are going, do you think this is going to be a dominant tactical trend in the Premier League for seasons to come?
I think it has the opportunity to be it, but I think it has been for a while. I think you're right to say that Jose Mourinho and the 4-3-3 in particular was the catalyst, but I think the real reason it started to become more and more prevalent is when you think about how those the wide three of the two wide forwards have now started to become inverted. And so once that happens and you have a right footer on the left and a left footer on the right, they're both cutting inside, you're finding yourself congested in that central area. Now, some teams, they want that. Manchester City, for example, they want that. They want to have lots of good technical players with coast control to pin you into a certain area and still believe they can play through you or around you. Whereas for a lot of other teams, they realise that when you've got that system, what you've also got is loads of space out wide. So if you've got someone who's got a good engine and got good delivery and can play fullback, then that is your attacking advantage. And I think you'll find that there have been other teams who've done it throughout the Premier League to a certain extent, not quite as well as you see it now. But obviously, Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, I'm going to be biased and say so, are currently the blueprint in that area because they have players who naturally do those things very well. And when you think about the dearth of the number 10, it really is more about the fact that you have the skills of a player who played in those number 10s. So you think of Juan Riquelme, who was one of the archetypal number 10s. Yeah, even just the talk of his name conjures up magical images of a guy who could drift into space wherever he felt it, who could dribble past anyone, drop a shoulder, always see the right pass. You have those qualities in players in football now, but they're just not standing in that position. Now you've either got someone like Trent who can do all of those things, but is starting out on the wide right, or you have like Manchester City who will have a committee of guys all in and around the clusters who can all do those things, but it's the rotation of them and how they utilize the space that ends up being the real thing that gets them in.
City are a great example because you have obviously the 3-8s, and you would think, given the Barcelona lineage and the Bayern Munich, that Pep would be about central creativity, but it's not. If you look at the way City start, yes, you need a central defensive midfielder, So Rodri, Busquets, whoever, right? Xabi Alonso at Bayern, went through hell. Like he played Philip Lahm there, and then he brought Xabi Alonso in from Real Madrid because he knows he needs someone at the base of midfield. When it comes to the final third, if you watch it, the Barcelona teams and everything, it's the ball goes through midfield, and then when they're building attacks, when they keep in possession, it stays in midfield. That's when you need powerful, strong, intelligent central midfielders like Xavi, like Iniesta. But when you're building attacks, you're always doing it in the half spaces and wide. If you watch Guardiola's teams, so De Bruyne and David Silva, the famous 3-8, they would spend their times in the half. They weren't playing central midfield as we know it. They were playing in the half space. Silva would usually stay narrow, and Sané would play wide of him. We'll get more into him later. But De Bruyne would just go wide. Like whoever was playing wide right would cut inside him, and De Bruyne would play at a sort of like a central midfield / right wing hybrid role almost. Like, and you think about how what is City's trademark goal? It's working the ball around the middle, bing, 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 pass out wide, low cutback. Width is essential to even Guardiola's play, which is famously about the center of the pitch. Pep wants to control the center of the pitch because that's where you can control the game from. But when you want to create goals, it always goes wide. And then it comes back in. Is that because width is how you kill teams, man? Johan Cruyff said this 30 years ago. Oh my God, that was 30 years ago. Anyway, Johan Cruyff said this 30 years ago. He's been saying it was always about width. It's having width. And so what's happened now is, because obviously not everyone is Pep Guardiola, right? Not everyone has his tactical brain. Not everyone can afford to or even wants to get the midfielders that he does to play that way. So Jurgen Klopp, and Mo said, the blueprint, and that's absolutely what he's done. He's offered you, like, I said this before. I said this on the last podcast before last. No one's ever won the Champions League with a less than brilliant midfield. Every Champions League winner has had a great midfield, right? Whether that midfield was unheralded, like Chelsea's 2012, where it used to had the ghost of Lampard, but still world class in his day. Ramirez was fantastic that season. John Obi Mikel, or like, and my brother said this to me. He goes, "Well, at Liverpool, that wasn't a world. We said that's a world class midfield." And I was like, and he meant the new one, the 2019 one. And I was like, for what it is, for what Liverpool need, yeah. Like you wouldn't look at Henderson, Fabinho, and I think it was it Naby Keita? Was it? I can't remember. Milner, I think it was in the final. Wijnaldum, of course. Yeah, you would look at that and think that's not a world class midfield. I mean, Fabinho, yeah, sure, but that's not a world class midfield. But then you look at what Liverpool used it for, to defend, so that as Mo said, their wide players could be the creative engine of the team. That's so. Klopp has now said, look, you don't even have to have a creative midfield anymore. So you want a lot of wide creators, do that, but then your midfielders still work hard. So it's there's two different ways now to do it, but always width is everything in football, and it's especially now.
Right, we're going to take a look at the list that you put together, Mo. You've been gorging yourself on the return of Champions League football this week, and I think some of the games have probably a bit of an impact on your selection. So we're going to go from 5 down to 1. We're going to look at some of these pairs and where we're expecting them to impact the Champions League this season. So coming in at number 5, we're going to throw this straight over to you. There's going to be a lot of you justifying your choices and your selections, so it's only fair that we give you a first shout on this one. So number 5, Real Madrid pair, Vinícius Jr. and David Alaba. Now Alaba, we all know, free transfer in from Bayern Munich this summer, kind of seen as a really astute, experienced, steady signing for Real Madrid. And then Vinícius, who's, in terms of perceptions, probably unfairly, is seen as this young player that needs to kind of settle and produce on a more consistent basis. Carlo Ancelotti's really backed him. David Alaba, you essentially know what you're going to get. You've got an experienced player that can play left back, centre back, holding midfield, wherever. The interesting bit about this partnership for me is Vinícius. So far this season, we've seen him look really, really consistent in terms of creating chances, scoring goals, etc. And he looks to have made that left-sided berth his own. If he performs this season, and if he is the central player that we think he can be, albeit maybe not positionally, how important can Alaba and Vinícius be for Real Madrid this season?
Well, firstly, just to caveat things, it may not be Alaba that plays there the whole season, right? Now, Feargal Brennan was their star signing last season. Very, very solid defensive player, not very attacking, not very good attacking, very basic attacking player. But he's injured right now, and so Alaba's been playing there, but then also Nacho's been playing there, and then youngster Miguel Gutierrez played there at the weekend. Great assist, by the way, if you look that up. Really good cross. So I don't know that they want to play Alaba there long term. Maybe they're looking to play midfield, but essentially, like you said, it's about Vinícius. It's about Vinny Jr., man. That's what he goes by now. We've got to respect that. It sounds a bit weird, but whatever. Vinícius is too cool of a name. Why would you ever shorten that? But anyway, Vinny Jr. phenomenal dribbler, right? This is the thing. This is evident when Madrid signed him sight unseen. Remember, he hadn't played like one game, I think, one sub appearance, and then they paid 45 million for him, and it was like, all right, you feeling okay, Florentino? But Florentino Perez was very scarred by Barcelona getting Neymar. Really, really upset him, and he was determined. Look, if there's a next Neymar, I'm getting him. I don't care how much I have to pay. So that's why they spent like 90 million on Vinícius and Rodrigo before they barely played, because he was made sure I'm getting the next Neymar, whoever that is. And Vinícius, for a long time, he was an absurd pace, absurd skill and pace. Like, could beat a man for fun, but would always just do nothing with the ball. Very wasteful with it. End product was shocking. And a lot of people wrote him off as a result of that. But I mean, it was the thing with him. He was either not going to figure it out. It sounds really obvious. He was either not going to figure it out, or he was going to figure it out. Vinícius Jr. was either going to become like a very erratic dribbler, a very erratic goal scorer who was nevertheless an amazing dribbler, an amazing creative player, like a front Ribery kind of thing, who would beat men for fun, but maybe become more of a creative player. Or he was going to figure out how to score goals and calm down in front of goal, and he's going to become one of the best players in the world. And well, he's played 5 games this season. He scored 4 goals. So I'll let you guess what you think is going to happen with Vinícius Jr. I mean, Real Madrid looking at Kylian Mbappe, mate. You've got your own Kylian Mbappe right there. You don't need. I mean, if you can get Kylian Mbappe, you get Kylian Mbappe. But Vinícius Jr. needs to be considered. Even Hazard is not first choice, or should not be first choice left wing. Vinícius Jr. legitimately offers more than he does. And then you have someone sort of like David Alaba or Mendy backing him up. Real Madrid's left flank starting to look quite tasty again.
I think what I was going to say regarding Eden Hazard is it's really interesting how this all came about because of that game against Levante, where Eden Hazard to start wide left had an absolute shocker, got hooked. Vinícius came on, absolutely changed the game, scored 2 goals, and they ended up drawing the game. And since that point, Vinícius has been the man when they play wide left. But whenever you see Hazard playing, he's been more as a forward. They've been playing as a 4-4-2, and they've had someone else out there wide left. No longer does Ancelotti really trust Hazard to do the job of the wide left, which tells me that he believes that Vinícius will figure it out and he will be able to do it. In terms of who plays behind him, it is interesting because you look at Alaba and you think, okay, well, he's a man of stature. He's got game intelligence. He's a leader. So obviously the best place for him is the leadership vacuum right in the centre of defence where Ramos and Varane have just gone. But he has alternated out there on the left back because we know that he can do that. And also, he's got this game intelligence. So when you've got someone like Vinícius who is still figuring it out, still not necessarily making the right decision every time, having someone like Alaba behind him just to kind of keep, mind the shop almost, is probably going to be something appealing to a guy, a pragmatist like Ancelotti. I do think Feargal Brennan will take it long term, and I do think that they can build a relationship. I mean, Feargal Brennan went the whole of last season without getting an assist. But he genuinely he does have ability in terms of his passing. He's also quite good when it comes to engine, getting up and down the pitch. So there is definitely potential in that partnership.
If nothing else, Mendy can be constantly just backing up and defending so that Vinícius doesn't have to. Although that's one again, because he's young, right? When you're young, you've got so much energy. Vinícius is, and he's got a real engine on him. He will defend. He will run back, chase back, and track back and defend, and have the energy to get the other side of the pitch and attack as well. He's really, really special. And if you look at Madrid, they've scored a lot of goals. I mean, obviously under Zidane, it was the joke on Twitter is crossing inshallah, right? So they've always used wide areas, not in the way that we're talking about necessarily, but they've always used wide areas. But now again, they've created a lot of goals from the left flank. Even the goal, a goal to win the Champions League game last night against Inter, came from a ball into Camavinga running down the left, who crossed it in for Rodrigo to head it. So they're using their flanks to attack from, and Vinícius is that emblematic of that. And I think him displacing Hazard is such a huge credit to him, because I think it's not just the fact that he can attack with more dynamism than Hazard can, because he's so fast, and that level of pace that he's got is just a cheat code. Like, you don't have to play well, as long as there's a space, hit it into the space, he'll go get it. He's that fast. And Vinícius is just sort of defying expectations now. It's like he's saying, this is my time. You all doubted me for so many years, said I was a joke. I've figured out how to finish now. So you guys better all duck and cover, because I'm coming for something.
from what might be a bit of a sticking plaster situation with Alaba at left back, whether it's semi-permanent or permanent, to a pretty much a pure thoroughbred, full-on left foot, left-sided, left-wing partnership. Number 4 on the list is Bayern Munich duo Alphonso Davies and Leroy Sané. Mo, we'll go to you over on this one because we talk a lot about inverted wingers and players bouncing in off the touchline and looking to get involved in play in midfield and create from there. This is fantastic. Davies and Sané, 2 players that are unashamedly left-sided, left-footed. And it is a little bit of a throwback in that sense of you've got 2 players so comfortable about receiving the ball and looking to go around defenders, either to deliver crosses or create chances centrally for the likes of Lewandowski. And we are going to talk about players that want to come in and exploit that space. But Davies and Sané as a bit of a throwback or something that is probably genuinely alternative to the status quo at the minute is fantastic to watch.
It is mad to think about the fact that these kind of chalk on the boots players are now becoming so rare. The fact that it's becoming a tactic now, because the fact is that every fullback is now expecting their wide players to come forward. They're not necessarily expecting someone to go on the outside. So sometimes that little bit of shock that they choose that way first can be all the space they need to get in behind. And the other thing I like about Davies and Sané, even though I'm still not convinced that Nagelsmann is 100% sold on them as a partnership, the 2 of them are doing everything they can to convince him. And I mean, in terms of all of them, these are the ones where when Davies goes forward, Sané does cover back. It's not necessarily asking a midfielder to do the job and they both string up. Sané does have that positional discipline, something that's grown, and I've noticed it more this season than he had it in the past. So maybe that's part of him trying to buckle down and prove to Nagelsmann that he deserves a place in the side. But obviously, Bayern have got quite a few wide forward options because they've got Gnabry, they've got Kingsley Coman, and then Jamal Musiala is basically his development has exploded this season. So when Gnabry went down in the last game against Leipzig and Musiala came on and scored and looked fantastic, he was basically demanding a start. So I think that was kind of what led Nagelsmann to go with the left and left side. But it worked really well. And I agree. I think it really does have potential. Just I wonder whether or not he's been convinced yet.
I mean, the thing with Sané is obviously at Bayern until now he's been quite disappointing, and I mean I put them fourth because I think there's more chance we're going to see this over the course of the season with with Vinícius and Alaba. It was mostly just to put Vinícius in there, right? With this one, it's like you can see Jasmine Baba, the great Jasmine Baba, wrote a great article about why Sané struggled at Bayern. And it's because he played basically in a 4-2-3-1, but a Bayern style 4-2-3-1, where the wingers are really more just like number 10s, like in the classic sense. And Sané then gets the ball, left or right, he gets the ball in positions where he's not ready to run at goal. You know, it's more of a different position, which doesn't suit his skill set. Now, I mean, for Germany, definitely we've seen it. Hansi Flick played him wide left for Germany. I was like, on the left, he's like, right, you're playing there, mate. And he was brilliant. He responded by being absolutely sensational. And now we're seeing it with Bayern as well. Nagelsmann's like, okay. And he's playing him wide left. And we saw it against Bayern at Barcelona. And he was really good. He was really good against Barcelona. And Davies, we know Davies is just, he just needs to stay fit, right? He's absolutely sensational. He didn't have as much joy against Barcelona because he was playing. This is the thing. It's weird to consider this because against Barca, neither of them really created too much. And so you think, oh, they weren't playing that well. But no, if Ronald Araujo is just out of this world, he played brilliantly against them. He's not Nelson Semedo, right? They weren't bullying Nelson Semedo or 48-year-old PK. They were going against Ronald Araujo, who is, I mean, look, as much as Barca are a mess, that kid is one of the best young defenders in the world. He's so big, strong, fast, assured, intelligent, like nothing phases him. So he was playing out of his skin to stop those two. Because otherwise, let me tell you something, there's another 8-2 coming. If he wasn't playing that well, the way that Sané and Davies were running at Barcelona's, Sergio Roberto got booed when he came off, was crying in the dressing room because he got, which to be fair, I understand. But he was tormented the whole game. Davies he had no answer. He couldn't press up and tackle him for whatever reason. And anytime Davies tried to run, it was like watching a man, he's like running in molasses after him, like, come back. please, Alphonso. And it was brutal. It was like the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, right? Honestly, you expect him to hold up a sign saying, "Oh no."
Obviously, you have Araujo there, but essentially, like when you're playing three at the back, and essentially it means Roberto's meant to be monitoring that whole flank, and he looks up and he sees Davies there, and he turns to one side and he sees Sané there, and it's like, wait, what? I'm covering these two? So I kind of get it, but again, like you say, within the wrinkle of the team system, Araujo is the one who comes across, and he did a good job of doing that.
No, but it was brutal, and that was the avenue really that Bayern were attacking. Barca didn't really go so much down the other flank. They did most of the attacking down that side, and they would have got more joy if they had and if they wasn't for Araujo. Like conversely, on the other side, when they did attack down the other side, Eric Garcia was there, who, as we've said before in the podcast, is a very good ball player, but isn't necessarily what you'd call a good defender, and folded like cheap paper, and Bayern got loads of joy down that side. And again, Bayern didn't even really play that well. They played okay. They won 3-0 at a canter at the Camp Nou because Barca didn't have the players. And Barca, that's a great example, by the way, of a team that's completely forgotten that wide players are meant to be creative and that you're meant to have really intelligent creativity out wide, because they've got none of them. They put Memphis in the middle of the pitch, which meant he was ice. He wasn't getting the ball in any sort of space, really, constantly getting marked. And then Luke de Jong, what? They need that team is crying out for Ansu Fati and Ousmane Dembele to come back and get some actual creativity and pace out wide, and then they can start using their fullbacks. And Jordi Alba was very creative. Alex Balde, by the way, came on and was the only good thing for Barcelona on the night, apart from Frankie and Pedri in midfield. So that game was like a perfect encapsulation of here's a team that's really using their flanks intelligently. Here's a team that is not, and that's almost where the game was won and lost, really. So yeah, Davies and Sané, two lefties on the left, is just terrifying. One goes outside, one goes inside. They can both do either. It's scary, man. Bayern have got potential. They're not there yet, but they've got potential.
Mo, you said before that you're going to have to justify some of your choices, and I think that's the next one coming up, because we've got a Premier League flavour at number 3, Jack Grealish and João Cancelo for Manchester City. And we talked about two lefties on the left for Bayern Munich. With Pep and with City, you never know whether you're going to get two lefties on the right or one righty and one lefty, and basically you just have no idea how he's going to line up, particularly when it comes to the Champions League. Now, João Cancelo, consistency-wise, has been excellent for Manchester City in the last couple of seasons, but the microscope is going to be on Jack Grealish this season. He started well. He started very strongly. Looking at some of his numbers here, second most chances created so far this season with 13, 7 out of 11 take-ons completed. He has looked impressive, and you look at his goal against Leipzig, it was Villa Grealish receiving the ball on the left, jinking inside, 1, 2, 3, goes past the fullback, and then just bends it into that far corner. But we're talking about him as a wide man, just as we did at Villa. And Mo, this is what I wanted to ask you, because the big chat over the summers when he went to City is that he was going to play as an 8. He'd be the other side to De Bruyne in front of either Fernandinho or Rodri. So far at City, he's been deployed as Villa's Grealish. And given the fact that Pep is very, not untrusting, but he waits for you to prove to him that you should be playing in the position that he might have earmarked for you. A season might seem like a long time to wait, but not when you're Pep Guardiola. Do you think maybe for 2021 to 2022, Guardiola will keep him in that Villa position and create this lethal flank with Cancelo behind him?
I don't know about the whole season, but certainly to begin with. I think, look at Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva didn't play almost the entire of his debut season at City. He was on the bench the whole time. And same with Riyad Mahrez. And everyone's like, why? It's because they're learning the system. Because Pep's system is extremely detail oriented. It's really, really difficult to master. But once you master it, you're on a whole nother level, as we've seen from Mahrez and Bernardo Silva since then. So Grealish, you can't bench Jack Grealish. You pay 100 million quid for a man. You can't bench him, especially when he's such an iconic figure that, like, the stadium, however many fans there are in the stadium, Pep had to openly plead people to come to games. I mean, that's just kind of sad. I mean, come on, you've been the best team in the world 3 of the last 4 years, and you can't fill out your stadium. What are you doing? Anyway, the fans that are there would be in revolt. You're not playing Jack Grealish. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, Grealish is the kind of personality you can't just drop him. So he's had to play him. So you play him wide. That's where he's most comfortable. That's where he understands. That's where he can play his game and minimize the impact on defensive problems and whatnot. who plays with him is interesting because it was Zinchenko against Leipzig. But I picked Cancelo because I think of City's left back options, he's actually their best. And in their big games, I think you're likely to see him there because Pep likes Kyle Walker in the big games. Because when Pep is controlling Kyle Walker is very good. Just when you put him in Gareth Southgate's team, he doesn't look quite as good. But when Pep's there, Pep's telling him what to do, where to stand. He knows what to do, and he's really good. So I think we'll see Cancelo on the left, and it's going to be interesting because Cancelo plays left wing, kind of like a left midfielder, cuts inside really. And what we might see is Phil Foden play left midfield, ostensibly left midfield. What we might see is Grealish comes infield, Foden goes out, and then Cancelo plays midfield. So it's like a switching of positions almost. But I do think we'll see a lot of Grealish playing wide for at least the first half of the season. Maybe after Christmas he'll move into the middle. But I think with Grealish playing wide, what he does is he's allowed to isolate defenders then 1v1, as we saw for his goal and for every other goals as well. He isolates defenders, he goes past them, he creates havoc. And if you link that with someone like Cancelo, who's such an intelligent player, who can back him up and who can pass, who can dribble, who can shoot and so forth, as we saw yesterday again against Leipzig. You're looking at a flank that can almost do it all, really. And then if you ally it with if you just put a lefty, Phil Foden, to actually go outside and create actual genuine width, that's kind of a deadly flank, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Thanks for that horrible thought of death. No, you are spot on though about Grealish. He is still very early in his City development, and the best example of that is Phil Foden, who started out as a left wide player and is slowly beginning to get into the centre. And the same happened with Bernardo Silva. They went that same journey. I think with Grealish, it is familiarity, like you say, because when you watch the games, he is still popping up in other places. But if you watch the highlights of a game, all of the times where he's having an impact is from that position. So he's still finding his way into the system, finding a way to work out in there. But I mean, this is kind of two good players in a good system rather than necessarily a partnership. I think when you think about in terms of going forwards and back, like I said with Davies and Sané, that like when Cancelo, for example, is up the pitch, Grealish isn't the one who's expected to be covering over him. Like City do this really weird thing. Like they showed a graphic after the Leicester City game where it showed them in possession and out of possession. And City are the only team I know who are more compact in possession than they are out of possession, which is not the way you'd expect it to be. And they're in this kind of 2-3-5 thing. So they've got the two centre-backs, then they'll have Rodri with the full-backs alongside them in midfield, and then basically two guys on either flank, and then your nominal number 9. And what that is for overloads to whoever poor bastards is out on the outside trying to play fullback. These are the people you're going to be seeing. And it's a rotating cast because they do have, once they have the intuition between each other, they do rotate. So they're always giving the defence a new problem to deal with. And because you've got your fullbacks, as I say, playing in central midfield, it allows Cancelo to act from that more central position and feed almost like number 8 balls in behind for a running number 9 like he did against Leipzig. And it's a system that very other few teams have the bravery to play, but you have to take your time to integrate people into the system to get it going. So it's almost like Grealish is still at the entry position. He's still at the rookie spot in the wide forward position. But eventually, once he's started to learn it, he will be mixed in and he could be popping up anywhere.
Moving on to the top 2. Now, we talked about controversy and Mo justifying his picks, so we're going to go back to you for number 2. And one of the players involved in this has only played 30 minutes of league football this season, which by anyone else's measurements wouldn't have him anywhere near the top 5, top 10, top 20, but that player is Lionel Messi. So Mo, you've gone at number 2, PSG pair Achraf Hakimi, who's obviously come in from Inter Milan this summer, and the main man himself, Mr. Messi. Now, obviously, I'm joking. 30 minutes of Ligue 1 football so far this season, a full 90 against Club Brugge as they kicked off their Champions League campaign. Everybody is fascinated to see how Messi is going to get on at PSG, how many games he's going to play, how Pochettino handles him, where he's going to play, X, Y, and Z. But on the face of it, you've obviously included them as number 2. This looks like a partnership made in heaven. We know Messi from his days at Barcelona, that sounds so strange still, that he likes the ball on that right-hand side where he can cut in and just tear entire teams to bits. If you've got the train that is Hakimi going in the opposite direction, fantastic for Inter Milan last season, the amount of assists that he racked up for Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez were incredible. PSG have now looking to harness that. If Messi stays in the role that we expect him to stay in, with Hakimi in support, this could actually be deadly for PSG this season.
I mean, first of all, you just reminded me that Messi plays for PSG, even though I knew he did and I watched the game last night. I've just remembered it again. I'm just getting depressed. Look, since Hakimi went to Dortmund in 2019-20, right? So the last 3 seasons across Europe's top 5 leagues, he's had more touches in the opposition's box than any other fullback, 276. He's not a fullback; he's a winger. He's not even a wingback. He's just a winger who plays wingback or fullback or whatever. He's a freight train. He's honestly he's enormous. He's gigantic. He's really tall. He's really strong, and he's fast as anything. It's terrifying. And Messi obviously is short and not strong, and not well for his size. I guess he's strong, but he's short and he's not really terrifying physically. You're like, oh, cute little man, tousled his hair, and then he nutmegs you and scores. They're number 2 because Messi's the best player in the world. We've not seen this flanking operation, but in theory, it's ridiculous. It's perfect. Messi doesn't even have to play right wing. Like, that's the thing with Messi playing right wing is he abandons it. He plays central midfield, number 10, and striker. Right, that's what he does. But you need then someone to play right wing, and usually that's a problem. They used to have Dani Alves. That was who did it at Barcelona. By the way, Dani Alves is currently a free agent, so there's a smart club out there that wants to win some trophies and needs just a final bit of push. Dani Alves on a free? I mean, come on, what more do you want? Anyway. So I'm just being his agent now. I'm shilling for Daniel. But honestly, in terms of a list, we're talking about fullbacks. He's the fullback, probably the best one of all time, and he changed the game. You know, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Achraf, Hakimi. These guys are all living in Dani Alves' shadow. These are his children. You know, Trent Alexander-Arnold is his son. I'm sure if they met, he would be like, "Oh my God, Dad, I love you." You know,
I think if anyone's going to stretch the limits of what we can call a free transfer, it's going to be Dani Alves. But other than that, I agree 100%.
Yes, no, and look, it's you look at Messi cuts in field, and you need someone that can own the flank. So not only does Hakimi have the ball skills to own the flank, but he has the physicality to literally just own the flank. That's him. He's on the right wing. And so then Messi cuts in field, gets involved with Neymar and Mbappe. We saw it to degrees last night against Bruges. It wasn't really fully flowing, in part because Mbappe is almost like the three of them don't have this. Suarez gave them such a better fit than Mbappe to go with those two because he understood them. He understood them and he had a more of a selfless kind of number 9 kind of game, which meant he could play off them a little bit better. Mbappe and Neymar tend to cross their wires a little bit. And then with Messi there, it's like, who am I linking with? And it's like, yeah, they'll need more time to figure it out. They'll figure it out. They're too good not to, and they're too generous not to. But right now, it's not instant like MSN. Although, frankly, MSN took half a season to get themselves going as well. So watch out around January. But
I mean, Messi's quite an intelligent fella, isn't he? Really,
just a little bit.
And even taking into consideration the fact that the Barcelona dominant years do have a dominant style and a dominant system, he played with a lot of different players over his Barcelona career and under a lot of different managers who all had different ideas of what they thought they could do to get the best out of him. So he's tried it all. As long as you've got quality players, then you can do it. What they really need to make sure they do have goes back to what we were talking about with the Liverpool 2019 midfield. It's dogs. Because they're going to be the ones doing the work.
Yeah, well, they've got Ronaldo, haven't they? Poor Genie.
Exactly.
They've got Genie to do the same job.
He's literally going to be doing the same job.
Yeah, but what they do need, I mean, to get away from the flank for a sec, just for a split second, what they do need then actually maybe is a little bit of a Henderson. Well, they need Verratti. They need Verratti to be fit. When Verratti's fit, it's going to change everything in midfield. But anyway, back to the flank. I put them there. These guys number 2 because Messi obviously is the best player in the world, and he can still play wide in wide areas. Hit the bar yesterday, or the corner post and bar. And Hakimi is such a relentless force. Messi cuts in field. One thing he always needs is options. These guys moving off the ball. Now, Neymar is going to move. Mbappe definitely is going to move off the ball. There'll always be movement, but you need to be able to go the other way as well because you can't always just be looking ahead of you Because I know Messi can produce those ridiculous diagonals better than anyone else on the planet, but even he can't hit them every single time. So you need, and PSG don't have a left back to speak of, right? So they need someone Messi needs to be able to reverse it, right? And that's where Hakimi comes in. You just little reverse pass. He can be 10 yards that way. You can have the ball, play a reverse pass, and he'll get there before the fullback. Like he's that quick.
I think what it comes down to, when you think about even in the Champions League, but particularly when they come up against them in Ligue 1, for most teams going up against PSG, they're going to be like, we can't let Messi beat us. Like, I don't care what else we've got to do. We can't let Messi beat us. So everybody who is going to be anywhere near his radius on the pitch is going to have at least one eye on Messi. So they're going to be like, I don't care what happens. You're not going to beat us. So what that normally means is that there's going to be space for somebody else. And if that somebody else has the amount of quality that Hakimi has, then eventually you're going to get to a point where most teams are going to get in a half time and be like, boss, I know you said look at Messi, but that fella's killing us.
Yeah. Right, moving on to top of the shop and number one, and I think it's going to be a point of universal agreement. So, Mo, I'm going to throw this back across to you because it involves your favourite subject. Number one, in terms of the best flank expected in this season's Champions League, is Liverpool and Mohamed Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, Salah started the season brilliantly, 4 goals and 2 assists in Premier League and Champions League action. But Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo, that's where I want to kind of place the focus, because during the summer, it's been difficult for him. Missed out on Euro 2020 through injury. We've seen how fantastic he was during his rehab and so dedicated to not just getting back, but getting back and being a better player than he was before. And he's managed to achieve it. And looking at some of his key numbers in Mo's article here, it's fantastic, particularly when we're still talking about a right back. Most chances created in the Premier League so far, 20. He's created 4 big chances, 2 assists. Got himself a goal last night against AC Milan in the Champions League. And the big question that I have to ask you, Jurgen Klopp's already given his answer on this. Is Trent Alexander-Arnold the best right back in the world?
I think he is. I think when you look at what he's asked to do and then how he actually is able to do it, I think there's no one better than him. I think a lot of the things that people will maybe say in the negative about him are more about the system. I think you will see plenty of times where he's upfield and the opponent's attacking behind him. That's how the system sets up. That's where he's supposed to be. If he were 40 yards back to stop the counter-attack, he would be doing what every other fullback can do. If he's up front, bringing in balls or maybe even putting the ball in the top corner himself, he's doing what very few fullbacks can do. And that's where he makes the difference. So that's the most important part. The thing that I love about him most, you're right, he is always looking to improve. I mean, some of the stuff that he did over the summer in terms of like, so his sleep cycles and all this other kind of stuff, like it's all out there on the internet of showing him going into all this deep stuff to just find any extra percent. And he's aware that everybody knows about him now. He's aware that everybody's looking at him now. And so he has to find something new. And this is where Salah comes into it, because the relationship the two of them have has been fantastic. A lot of time, as we say, Salah is the archetypal wide forward. He can come down and he can get a long ball over the top, and he's in that wide forward channel and he can run at a fullback, or he can decide to cut inside and gives Trent loads of space to overlap on the outside. Everyone knows about that. Everybody is scared of that. What happens now is that sometimes you'll find the setup where Salah is playing where you'd expect a right back to receive the ball from a goal kick. Salah standing there on the halfway line, dead on the right touch line, and Trent is on the edge of the centre circle, inside him, level. And it's like, I've now become this guy, and you've now become that guy. And when the defenses see that, they're like, well, we don't know what to do with this. We're expecting him to be there. And what it is because they're expecting Trent to be always the one whipping the balls in, assisting. That's his game. The new wrinkle is going to be goals. It's going to be him in central areas, going towards goal, not looking for anybody else except the back of the net. And I hope that people have been banging onto him all summer long saying, you should be getting 15 goals this season, because he should.
I mean, look at the goal last night. I mean, it was an own goal in the end, but you look at it. Salah starts the move, glued to the touchline. He's standing way out wide, and he plays the pass into Trent, running behind the defense. All right, Leao lets him go, doesn't track his run or whatever, but Trent's running into the box and he shoots. Doesn't hesitate, doesn't look for the cross, hits it right at goal, and he gets a deflection and whatever, lucky finish, whatever. The point is, that's exactly what Mo was talking about. This is the best flank pairing in the world, and it has been for 3 years. Like it's there's no question about it in my mind. And maybe you could argue Messi and Hakimi on theory could match this, but that's theory. We haven't seen them do it yet. We've seen these guys kill it. Mohamed Salah, I mean, Trent didn't have a great 2021, right? He didn't have a great last season. Salah has been ridiculous. Since Philippe Coutinho left for Barcelona in January 2018, Mohamed Salah has consistently been one of the top 5 players in the world. Maybe even top 3. He's the leap in his game. Like Mane made a huge leap in his game, but Mane is now, as we've clearly seen since the start of last season, he's kind of regressed to Southampton Mane now, where he's still brilliant, but it's inconsistent now. It's like 1 minute he'll score, 1 minute he'll miss an open goal, takes more chances to score, not quite sharp. Salah, meanwhile, hit this world-class level and is just still there. He is world-class. This is just a phenomenal player. I talked for like 10 minutes before the podcast. We were just talking. We delayed the start of the podcast because I was just talking about how great Salah is. For like, I think at least 5 minutes, just going, he's so amazing. He does this. He presses. He tracks back. He links play. He scores goals. He dribbles. He's phenomenal. He's incredible. He's absolutely one of the very best players in the world. And everyone forgets about him. And I don't know why. I think because he didn't make a big transfer or something. Liverpool fans are like, oh, we should have sold him. No, you shouldn't. You out your mind. He's flipping incredible. You are lucky to have him. Anyone would be lucky to have him. He walks into any team in the world.
People talking about the fact that Liverpool haven't signed a big player forget the fact that we have one already. Now, in the comparison between Salah and Mane, I always think of it as like 400-meter runners. When you get in towards the other line, one person's not getting quicker, they're just slowing down slower. And I think that's what's happening with Salah and Mane, is in Mane has started to do a little things that are getting in his head a little bit. I still think that he can get back to closer to where he was, but like you're right, with Salah, he's just a different animal. There's everything about him is tuned towards scoring goals. And I did a piece on him for Liverpool.com last week because when he scored his 100 Premier League goals, and it looked at iconic moments from each season. He has blessed us with at least one in every single season. So there was a thought that at the beginning he was going to be this one season wonder, not a bit of it. And even him, like I said with Trent, in terms of changing his style and offering new things, he's starting to do that himself as well. And the third part of their little triangle, again, shouldn't be discounted. When it's Henderson, then the defensive element is really important. As I mentioned, Trent is always going to be as high a starting position as he can get away with. And when he's got Henderson there, and to a certain extent Keita, then they can get away with it. When it's been Elliott, this has been another interesting wrinkle for me to watch. Elliott has become the third partner in the offensive side. So whereas normally you'd have Trent and then Salah, and one of them would overlap the other, and you draw one or two defenders to the other. When you bring Harvey in and it becomes a triangle, you have to drill more than even just the 3. It has to be 4 because there are so many options of where they can go. They need more players to cover it off. But then what you also have is someone standing a little bit deeper. So if they need to cut it out, they can cut it out, switch to play quickly, and then there's all this space on the other side. And it's these little extra bits that they're both adding to their game, which means that you're always going to have to work to stop them. Because of all of the partnerships we've mentioned, they've had the longest to work at it, and it shows.
Yeah, this is a tried and tested partnership. They've won the Premier League together. They've won the Champions League together. They have reached the Champions League final together. There's every possibility they're going to win something major this season. They're fun to watch. They seem to really understand each other despite being wildly different ages and from different cultures. They really get on. They work hard. Both of them will trap back. Okay, look, Trent's not the greatest defender. He's a great 1v1. He's there these spaces, but that's part of the thing. You wouldn't ask you wouldn't ask Wan-Bissaka to play like Trent Alexander-Arnold plays. Why would you ask Trent to play like Wan-Bissaka plays? They're different players. They're, one's a defensive back, one's an attacking fullback. Use them where they're strong. Trent and Salah are genuinely amazing. I was really looking forward to seeing how Harvey Elliott mixed in. I really hope he recovers soon. He seems like a really great lad. He's a wonderful footballer. Wish him nothing but the best. Speedy recovery, lad. But looking at Trent and Salah, there's no one out there that matches them. No one comes close. On the ball, off the ball, okay, whatever. On the ball, there's no one that can come close to them. No one that can do. They are the gold standard of flanks, not just in Champions League, in the whole world. This is what people need to be aiming at. Get on their level. Can PSG do it? I mean, the only criticism I'll have of Salah and Alexander-Arnold is that Trent, get a better number, dude. 66. No, I'm sorry. You should get number 2. Put it on your back. Number 2 or number 4 if you want to be a bit like an Argentine. But stop with this. That's my only criticism. That's literally the only criticism I'll accept of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mohamed Salah is Trent is wearing a rubbish football number. Come on, man. Number 2 or number 4. Sort it out, Trent.
There we go. The official line from Squawka. Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mo Salah are top of the shop. But Mo, always a big man for advice. He's got a little bit of advice for the best right back in world football. Get yourself a new number. But what I will say to caveat it all, I do agree with Salah and Trent. But that man in number 2 does not like being number 2. So Lionel Messi, don't know if you've heard of him, definitely one to watch this season. And he's got himself a new team. Mo, thanks so much for your time. We're going to call it there on the Squawka Talker podcast. Great stuff, guys. Thanks so much for your time, and we will speak to you again very, very soon.